Road, 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 road. I will put you right here next to my other road. Oh, hello. I'm Brian Hank, and this is a strategy video on the classic game Carcassonne by Klaus-Jürgen Ried. The agenda for this video will be to cover high-level strategies. Then I'm going to talk about each type of tile and how to use them. And then I will follow it up with just some general tactics. And as always, you can go to my blog, theforbiddenlimb.com, and get a text version of this with a little more data, and it just goes into a little more detail into some of these strategies, whereas this video keeps it pretty short. So, I will now move into high-level strategies. There are three of these that I'm going to discuss, and the first one is building a whole bunch of small cities and then farming. So you're getting your short-term points by putting a follower in a small city, hopefully just a two-tile city, and you're going to do that as many times as you can, and hopefully in the same area, so that you can, when you have an opportunity, put a farmer down in that area to cash in on those long-term points of farming for all those small cities, and you'll see that you'll get a ton of points in the end as well. So in this one you want to build roads away from you as possible. So you use corners to turn the roads away from your area. And then hope that you can keep the bigger cities away from you as well, because those won't really help you. They'll just kind of act as barriers. So that is the first one. The second one is to pretty much abandon farming completely and build one big city or a couple big cities, and then get majority in them, or at least tie for it. So if you see a city being built and you're not in it, then you would place your city tile with your follower in it very close to it, and then try to connect it so that everybody who has the majority can help build it bigger, and then anyone who is not there with majority would be left out of all those points. So it works against those who are farming, because if you're building one big city or a couple big cities, then there aren't a lot of those little cities around for the farmers to get those points. So it really works against the first strategy that I discussed. It's a little riskier because it's easy to think that you have majority and then have somebody else jump in and share it with you, or even worse, jump in and take it from you completely so that you are left out of all those points, and then you have absolutely no chance of winning. The third one is really just an opportunistic strategy. So you draw a tile and you look at the current game state and you decide what is best for you at that moment. So you decide, would it be better to go for some short-term points here? Would it be better to go for long-term points? Do I want to farm? Do I want to try to get in on that city over there? You really you look at the current game state and decide what's best for you. And the more you play the game and you're better able to weigh your options, the more you'll probably fall back to this strategy versus the other two that I mentioned. But it's a little hard to get there. It takes a lot of practice. Next I'm going to cover tile placement, and I think this is a good time to take a look at this chart here, which shows the number of players in a game, then how many turns each player gets, and which players get an extra turn. And you'll see here that the more players you have in the game, the fewer turns you get to take, and thus the less control you have over what the board looks like. So with in like a two-player game, you can really control what the board looks like, because you're taking half the turns and you're laying half the tiles. So you can build a whole bunch of small cities if you want, and then do a bunch of farming, and you can really control that. But when you have a lot of players in the game, then you're really just seeing, what they do, and if they build a lot of large cities, if they do a lot of small cities, you have to adapt to what other players do. Now I'm going to talk about each type of tile, and I'm going to start off with the amazing monastery tile. And this is a place where luck really comes into play, because if you draw a bunch of monastery tiles, you're probably going to win, and if you don't, it's going to be an uphill battle. When you put a follower on a monastery tile, you can build other things around it, like cities and roads, and get points for them, but also get them for your monastery, so you're kind of double dipping on points. Plus, you can get some help from your opponents, because although you could complete all 9 tiles yourself, that's going to take 9 turns, and that's a lot. You'd rather not. So you can build your monastery near places where your opponents have already invested. Like if they're building a very large city and there are open city tiles nearby, you could put your monastery nearby so that they finish their city or continue building it. And they would rather do that, even if it means giving you a point and helping you complete your monastery, Next up are roads, and it's pretty sad when you draw a road because you're not going to get many points from it. When you put a follower on it, you're still risking losing that follower by never completing that road or having your opponent put pieces around it that will make it completely impossible to complete, so they're just stranded. And then at the end of the game, you're only going to get a few points for that road anyway. But the good news is you can use it defensively, and that's where you'll find roads to be most effective. If somebody's building a city that they hope to complete, you can build a road next to it, towards it, so that now they will have to find a tile that will complete that city, but also satisfy the road requirement that you have now put on that tile. Also, people who are farming do not want roads anywhere near their farms. They want cities, and they want monasteries, they want fields. They don't want roads. So putting roads in an area where somebody is trying to farm will hopefully be able to take some points away from them. Next up are fields, and this is an area where it's kind of easy to get a little too drawn into. If you commit too early by putting a farmer down on one of your first few turns because you see that there are, say, 2 cities in this area, it's risky because you're never going to get that follower back. And now your opponents know that they can cut you off with roads, they can avoid building cities in your farming area. So it can really backfire on you. And in a game with fewer players, it's much riskier because you have to stretch those followers out over many more turns. So you will get better use out of them by using them for short-term points and then using them over and over and over again. But with more players in the game, it becomes much more viable to throw down a farmer early on. Lastly, we have cities, and this is what Carcassonne is based around, at least strategically. Are there a lot of small cities, or are there a few big cities in the game? That is what's going to help you determine whether you're going to get your long-term points from farming, or if you're going to get them from getting into these big cities. And then also, it's sometimes overlooked that how important it is to complete cities. So even if it is only 2 or 3 tiles in a city, you get double the points and you get your follower back. So if you ever see an opportunity to just get a 2-tile city, take it. Get those 4 points and use that follower again in the future. Now I'm going to go over some general tactics you can use in Carcassonne. First one being to try to just focus on one road in one city at a time, if possible. So you can have one of each going on, but if you try to work on like a couple different roads or a couple different cities at the same time, it just leaves more opportunities for your opponents to mess with you and foil your carefully laid plan. Another one is to not use that final follower until the last turn of the game. I know it's going to be tempting at some point to put that last follower somewhere, but resist the urge. There are exceptions, but very few of them. If you draw that monastery and you don't have a follower to put in it, oh, you are going to be so sad. So I do not recommend it until the last turn of the game. Also, know who your biggest rival or rivals are in the game. The points are visible, so you can see how many points each player has, and you can estimate how many points they're going to get from a farmer or a follower in a city just by looking and doing a quick calculation. So that should tell you where you are, where you stand in the game, and then also your opponents. And then when you find somebody who is beating you or someone who is close on your heels, then now you can start making plays that will hurt them, which will make it harder for them to score points in the future. And that will hopefully be enough to get you into first place. That is the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and as always, you can go to my blog, theforbiddenlimb.com, and you can get a more detailed version of this analysis in text form. Also, if you have a game you want me to cover in the future, put it down in the comment section. I'm always adding to my list. And if you want to see more of these videos, click subscribe so that they show up on your YouTube homepage. But otherwise, I guess that is it. Goodbye for now, and I will see you later.